Hello ladies and gentlemen, the next briefing for today is weekly updates from the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission to Ukraine, and now I'll give the floor to Mr. Alexander Hook, Principal Deputy Chief Monitor of the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission. Mr. Hook, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. Yet another week of violence in Donbass. Last week, the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission recorded over 6,000 ceasefire violations. About 40% of them were in the Donetsk airport, Yasinowata, Avdiivka area. From the SMM daily report issued on the 11th September, last Friday, you can see how intense the exchanges were. On the evening and night of 9th and 10th November, for example, the report outlines what the SMM camera at the Donetsk filtration station near Yasinowata recorded. This short edited clip shows just a fraction of what the camera recorded in less than 7 hours. In sequence, the camera recorded a projectile in flight from west to east, 2 tracer rounds from west to east, an explosion assessed as an outgoing round, a projectile from south to east to northwest, an explosion assessed as an impact, and 11 projectiles from east to west, followed by an aggregated total of 107 explosions and 36 projectiles, 30 from east to west, 4 from west to east, and 2 from northwest to southeast. The same report outlines the findings from the SMM ground patrol in neighboring Avdiivka on 10th November. Positioned on the southwestern edge of the town for about 5 hours, they heard about 120 explosions and about 220 bursts and shots of infantry fighting vehicle, 30mm cannon, automatic grenade launcher, small arms, and heavy machine gun fire. Dear friends, the conflict in eastern Ukraine ultimately requires a political settlement. There are ongoing efforts to reach such a settlement. But in the meantime, a ceasefire is required. A ceasefire respected by the sides will not bring an end to the conflict. If sustainable and irreversible, it will, however, create a conducive environment to implement other measures agreed in Minsk. More immediately, a ceasefire is required now because most of the violence is happening in and around residential areas, resulting in civilians being killed and injured. The OSCE SMM has confirmed that far over 400 civilians have been killed or injured so far this year. This violence must also stop because it risks escalation and even greater numbers of civilian casualties. The exchanges our monitors are recording in Avdiivka and Yasinowata are almost an exact replica of what they were recording at around the same time last year. If unchecked, just like what happened before, we expect to see major escalation. Remember, in the week of 30th January to 5th February this year, following almost total calm 5 months previously, followed by a steady increase in the level of violence, the OSCE SMM recorded approximately 36,000 ceasefire violations. Such escalation is inevitable if the violence is not stopped now. Dear friends, everyone knows this already, and almost no one no one wants this carnage to continue, certainly not the civilians bearing the brunt of it. And I am almost certain even those engaged in this violence do not want it. They, more than anyone else, can see its utter futility. They sit in trenches and fortified positions, inflicting pain and enduring it. For what? They and the civilians living around them are caught in a cycle of violence. Dear friends, that cycle of violence needs to be broken. I'm conscious that this is self-evident. Self-evident, at least, to anyone at the receiving end of the violence. Self-evident to anyone monitoring it up close. Self-evident, I imagine, to those firing and being fired at. But apparently not self-evident to the people making the decisions. Yet again, they have failed to implement basic measures required to break the cycle of violence. Yet again, our monitors on the ground have noted a failure to fully comply, a willful refusal to fully adhere to their commitments to cease fire, withdraw weapons, disengage forces and formations, demine, and allow the OSCE SMM safe and secure access to all areas. The OSCE SMM daily report of 7th November, for example, outlines multiple violations of the respective withdrawal lines. In government-controlled areas, 8 self-propelled howitzers near Oleksandropil, and in areas outside government control, a T-72 tank near Hryazhstvate, and 4 multiple-launch rocket systems near Novo-Amrosivke. Disengagement of forces and formations, another key element in breaking this cycle of violence, we again noted last week, is far from being implemented. The disengagement process has long been stalled. Of the 3 pilot disengagement areas, there has been no progress in Stanica Luhanska, and we had periodically noted violations in the 2 other areas. Last week, however, we actually noted some additional negative developments, in particular in the Petrivske disengagement area. On 10th November, a SMM mini UAV was operating in the Petrivske disengagement area. It spotted 2 stationary infantry fighting vehicles seen here in this image. Closer analysis, as you can see here in this close-up shot, also revealed several small tents and above-ground wooden and canvas structures, at least 3 underground bunkers, and 5 heavy machine gun and 2 mortar firing positions, all connected by trenches. Even in the pilot areas, the sites are evidently not prepared to disengage. The UA flights conducted close to the Petrivske disengagement area on 10th November also highlighted the failure of the sites to understand the other elements necessary in breaking the cycle of violence. Here, in this image, you can see some of the over 200 previously seen anti-tank mines the UAV spotted just outside the disengagement area. Mine action is critical, recognized in the Provision 6 of the Minsk Memorandum of 19 September 2014 and the decision of the Trilateral Contact Group on Mine Action of 3rd March 2016. Its importance is clearly not, however, recognized by those making decisions. The same people clearly don't recognize the centrality of SMM freedom of movement to making a ceasefire agreement stick, to breaking this cycle of violence. Of note, last week the SMM received the information that 2 civilians were killed from mines and unexploded ordnance. If we cannot move freely and safely, then we cannot monitor and verify compliance by the sides, in which case neither side has the confidence to comply, not knowing that the other side is complying. And yet on the same day, 10th November, near Petrivske, our monitors were forced to abort 2 UAV flights. On both occasions, the UAV was shot at. This was not an accident. It was a deliberate violation of the Minsk package of measures, which allows for the OSCE SMM to use such technology to complement its monitoring and verification on the ground. Dear friends, with winter almost upon us, and with the plight of the civilian population about to be exacerbated, the sides need to fully comply now. Now is the time they also need to ensure repair work is completed on critical civilian infrastructure. Electricity lines around Krasny Partizan, Betmanove need to be repaired now if a vital local water pump station is to operate. Repairs are also long overdue at the Krasnohorivka gas distribution center. The list of facilities needing repairs is long and time is running out. Next week I will be in eastern Ukraine, where I hope to visit some of these facilities. I hope to see some progress. We know it's possible. The OSCE SMM regularly monitors and facilitates localized windows of silence, allowing for repair work to take place. More needs to be done, but much work has been done, showing it is possible. We also know that a ceasefire is possible. Already we have seen some weapons withdrawal, some disengagement, and some demining. We have at times, albeit not too often, seen the sides almost fully adhere to the ceasefire. Ceasefire is possible. Peace is possible. The sides just need to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hook. Now it's time for questions. Dear colleagues, if you have questions, you're welcome to ask them. One small question in Ukrainian.
Crimean news agency, can you clarify, you demonstrated BMP near Petrivske, whether it is controlled or non-government controlled area, and the number of violations of the withdrawal for the last week?
Thank you very much. The area of disengagement in Petrivske is almost inaccessible for the OSCE SMM. The reason for that is the persistent unwillingness of the sites to remove mines and other hazardous obstacles. Our reports reflect what we managed to see and reflect also the impediments the sites put in our way. The number of violations of the respective withdrawal lines are also contained in our reports on a daily basis. So far this year, we have registered almost 3,800 such weapons in violations of respective withdrawal lines. Thank you.
If there is no more questions, thank you, Mr. Hook.